All right. One more second. Okay, thanks so much. We're really excited to have you all here. My name is Gabe McPhail. If I haven't already met you, I do some project support work with the town. We're really excited for this conversation. We did have sort of like an educational intro event to this project, the Folly Pond Trotting Park Road Resilience Project. This is a grant-funded project through the Community Resilience Partnership. It's a state program, so we got a community action grant to do this work. It is a project that is focused on the two sites, the Trotting Park and Folly Pond. And we talked about this a little bit in our educational event that sort of, like I said, we had a first conversation educational event. And that focused on mostly on Folly Pond, but we did discuss why the meadow, which we see flooding all the time, why that was not part of this project. And that is because we did an alternatives analysis for that section of roadway in 2023. That report is over there on the table if anyone wants to take a look at it. It's also on the town website, and we'll be sharing some resources. So if anyone wants copies of something, let me know. So this is a project that has many partners. You all are partners because we need to know what's going on in the area. We have our engineers, Anya and James are here with us tonight. We are also working a bit with the Maine Rural Water Association. Kitty Wilkin, she was one of our presenters at our educational event last time. And then the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee folks who are here tonight, great, are also a big part of this project, supporting the outreach and engagement and just a lot of the information that's being shared. And then of course, Vinalhaven Water District is also a project partner as well. Sorry, I'm doing a little tech here too. So just to do a quick overview for tonight, this project is not just about the roadway access, which we all know is a big part of things, but we're looking at the entire ecosystem. So there are a lot of environmental considerations, and because we have Folly Pond there, which is one of our freshwater resources, and that feeds, that is fed directly by Round Pond. We have a lot of water quality and also drinking water considerations that we're dealing with. So there are a lot of things that sort of are at play in this project, not just, how do we have safe road access, although that is a key point of things as well. So, sorry, I keep moving our folks back and forth here. So for tonight, what we're gonna do, I'm not gonna stand up here and chat at you. Anya and James will describe a little bit about what this project is and talk a little bit of the work that they have started on the project, but mostly what this is to learn from you. So they have brought a bunch of great questions. So we really invite you to be thinking and participating. And we will also talk quickly, I'll do that now, but also remind you at the end about some next steps in engagement opportunities that we have moving forward. And one of them is, you'll see there are some of these little flyers around. We encourage people to provide feedback. If you want to provide anonymous feedback or whatever, you can do so. There's a QR code and a URL here. This is just a Google form that's going to be online the duration of the project. If you want to write about, your concerns, considerations, please, feel free to use that form if that's comfortable for you. The other option, obviously, is you can contact me directly. I will give you my email. You can talk with Marjorie Stratton, or you can speak with any of the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee members. And we'll get information to the engineers too. If you're unable to share things tonight or unable to speak with them tonight, we'll make sure that we pass along that information to them. I think the other thing I just wanted to say was that we do have another conversation with the engineers, and that will be in September when we talk about the alternatives that they're bringing to us to look at. So what we talk about tonight will inform those concepts, and what we talk about in September will be like a deeper dive into that. So I think I will stop talking and do what we're here. Yeah, turn it over to you guys. Oh, this is one more thing. I'm gonna pass this around. If you're not on our email list, and you would know if you're on our email list because I would have emailed you directly about this event. If you're not and you want to get those direct email project updates, I'm gonna pass this around. Please just provide your name and email, and I'll make sure you get on that list. All right, great. Thank you so much. All right, Anya and James, thank you.
Okay. Make sure. Okay. Thank you, Gabe. Thanks for introducing us. I'm going to start by introducing myself, and then I'm going to pass the baton to James for introduce himself.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gabe.
I forgot to introduce Maisie. Maisie, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I realized I just forgot. So Maisie Richards is also a member of the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee. Maisie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Totally. And also, you're doing a lot, Gabe, because I can't do the Zoom part of this. So great job, Gabe, doing a million different things at once. I'm Maisie. I'm with the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee. I think my mom's in the audience too. You can give a little wave. And I'm also getting to work with on this project and helping out with visual communication. I have a background in fluvial geomorphology and have passion for water and our relationship to water, and excited to love this island so much, and really excited to be a part of this project however I can be.
Awesome. Thank you, Maisie. And Maisie has generously offered for online folks. Maisie's facilitating questions coming from the online audience and then sharing some links in the chat for the online audience. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, Gabe, and thank you, Maisie. And we are very excited to be here and to be working on this project with you all. My name is Anya Chandler. I'm a managing engineer with Barton & LaJudas, and my background is water wastewater engineering, and now I do primarily transportation design. And most of my design these days is in bike ped work and with multi-use trails, but I also do traditional roadways and things like that. James?
James White. I'm a principal engineer with Redfish Engineering, which is outside Portland. Kind of really where we're supporting B&L on this project is the intersection of the infrastructure of the wetlands. So trying to design things and consider solutions that work with the wetlands and the water, both the tidal and the riverine systems that we'll look at the two sites.
Okay, so our agenda for tonight is we've started the team introduction a little bit. We'll also do a project background. And one thing I just want to stress to you all is that for us, the most important part of this evening is your feedback to us. The real goal for this meeting is for us to understand your experience with these sites, some of the background that might be helpful for us to make decisions about what the best design could be in the future, because all of your comments will be wrapped up and put into all our alternatives analysis, and what you contribute here tonight or what you may contribute online later will be important for our understanding of the project areas. So I really, really encourage your participation in tonight's meeting. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with Trotting Park. We've sort of broken this presentation into thirds. And the first third is we're going to go through a bunch of different ideas that we have for Trotting Park. And the reason we're doing that is Trotting Park is a little bit more complicated in the ways that we can approach the different solutions. And so we are really looking for your initial reactions to all of the different possibilities of what we could put there. And we have quite literally given you all of the possibilities, or very close, all the possibilities of what we could put there, from the cheapest to the most expensive to kind of everything. So we want your reactions to all of that. The second third of this presentation is going to be a larger, more general discussion about Trotting Park, thinking a little bit more about the past rather than the potential for the future. What were your experiences there? What have you seen there? How do you use that space? The third of this presentation is going to be a similar discussion about Folly Pond. So similarly, we want to understand, what have you seen there? What is your experience there? And that type of thing. Oop. Okay, so a little bit of project background and what we have done to date. So as Gabe said, we are studying these two sites of Trotting Park and Folly Pond. And about a month ago, I can't remember the exact date, but about a month ago, we were here on the island. You might have seen us walking around in our high-vis vests, and we were here collecting data. So we did some preliminary survey work, and James and his team did a bunch of work with streams and water and all that good stuff, which I'll let him get into. And yeah, we really just spent a lot of time on the sites to help understand some of the details of what data we need, what data we could collect to kind of help us with those initial conceptual designs.
Yeah. On our side, we were really just trying to get a good assessment of site conditions, kind of see things when the leaves were just starting to come out. We had good visibility of the stream to make sure that when we're looking at Folly Pond, we're designing to be compatible with the stream. We're thinking about the debris and beavers that are upstream there. And at Trotting Park, wetlands both sides. So we're really trying to account for that and some of the changes in the coastal system we've seen evidence of over the past few decades, and designing with all that in mind. So collecting the data to really inform the next steps here and develop these holistically with both for the project resilience, but also thinking about permitting when we get down and actually start advancing the project, trying to start thinking about those conversations and make our lives easier.
Yeah, so and James mentioned a couple of the constraints that we're thinking about and looking at while we're here. And he mentioned the beaver activity and the wetlands, but also the utilities is a really important constraint for us as well. Okay, so for Trotting Park, the alternatives that we've put together, we have put together these three scales that I have on the screen here. And I do want to mention that while we have taken an initial look at all these different ideas and we've put them in these different categories, it is an initial look, and there could be things that come up in the alternatives analysis that change where any of these ideas fall in these categories. This is just based on the information we know right now. So first we have costs, and it's from $1 to $4 signs, 1 being less than $500,000, 4 being greater than 2 million, and 2 and 3 being in the middle there. Permitting pathway, no permit required. That is the simplest path, all the way up to challenging, which is a long or involved permitting process. The third category is the general environmental impact. And this environmental impact covers quite a few things. A big consideration for us again here is the wetlands, but that goes also from none to a high environmental impact. These are the drawings that Maisie put together, and they are so lovely. And this is her drawing of the existing condition, and you'll see coming up, she's drawn in alternatives to our different ideas. So our first couple of ideas that we're going to present to you are actually our no build options. So these don't come with a drawing, but I'm going to let James start talking about these.
Thanks. Yeah, so when we're considering alternatives, one of the things, whether it's permitting or working with the community, we want to think about what if we don't do anything? And one of the points that we always like to make on some of these projects where we're seeing frequent flooding is there's a cost of no action. So if we do nothing at these sites, there's going to be impacts all your lives with being able to travel when the road's flooded and overtopped. There's costs to the town to clean debris and reopen the road. And depending on the severity of the damage, if there's repairs needed, there's emergency flood response permits that get issued. They're generally pretty easy to navigate, but if we simply do nothing, there will be continued impacts to the residents using the road and to the community's resources if we don't do anything. So not doing anything is an option. It has pros and cons with it. In addition, we tried to think of some other solutions. We heard a little bit through our engagement in the town so far about challenges of emergency services during these overtopping events. So Trotting Park, we heard there's an alternate access route. So it takes longer to get around, but there's another way to get there. And particularly on the north side of Folly Pond, there's no way to cross that road when there's no alternate access to get around there when it's overtopped. So we're trying to think, all right, if we're trying to provide emergency services, one of the options we have is pre-positioning some ambulances or fire trucks or something, some of the responders on that side. The advantage that we have with some of these tidal systems is that we kind of know, we have some prediction of when the high tide is going to happen, when these storm surges occur. So it's an opportunity that we have on sites like this where we can pre-position emergency response infrastructure in advance of these storms and at least be able to respond in the event something bad were to happen during those times. You still can't get back to town in those situations, but it's a low cost effort to try and expand and shorten the response time for emergency services during some of these events. So those were kind of the two no build ideas. And Anya did mention, we also want to try and be like kind of expansive at this phase. So it's a good idea to get ideas if they're not up here, but over the course of the project, this list will be narrowing down. So we've got the big list here, and our goal kind of at the end of this night is to try and narrow it down to a narrower list. So feelings on these will be appreciated when we get to the discussion portion. If we're talking about construction actions, one of the alternatives that we considered, kind of like a seawall, if the road largely stays as it is, and we construct a barrier between the road and the flooding source, the cove on the Trotting Park site. So you can kind of imagine, like if you're driving out of town and going past the site, this wall is going to be like 3 to 4 feet tall. So if you're sitting in a sedan, you're going to be looking out, you're going to be looking at a piece of concrete, not really be able to see the view. This works great for keeping water out. We have, from one direction, we have to think about still letting the stream drain out from the other direction during that sort of event. And if we want to start managing waves that happen during some of those higher flood events, that wall gets even taller. So there's some pros and cons to a solution like this. It has a relatively small footprint. So if we're talking about permitting, we're not impacting a lot of area or touching a lot of wetlands that we'd have as challenging a permitting strategy on some of these other ones. And the cost can range on these, some of the bigger seawalls that we see on the actual ocean can be pretty expensive, more permanent. There's some modular solutions that have started to be developed now that are a little bit easier to deploy and more cost effective to install, but it's an option that we have for this site to just try and keep the ocean out and off of the road. But you can kind of imagine that you got this wall of water that would be right behind you as you're driving across this road. So I always like to point out with some of these solutions, they work until they don't. And once that's overtopping, you're getting the full brunt of the water coming at you all at once. We also thought about raising the roadway. So the road as it stands now, we've got our driving surface and we've got a little shoulder kind of on both sides before the marsh starts on the side. So simply raising the roadway, we can raise it up above the flood elevation and protect the road surface from that. And the most cost-effective way to do that would be just to fill earth material, raise the road, and pave on top of it. So while that works, the challenge that solution has is that every foot higher we go with the road, we have to go 4 to 10 feet wider at the base. So every foot higher we go, we're going 5 to 10 feet into the wetlands. And if we have to raise this road several feet to be above some of these tides that are forecast in these larger storms, we've got a pretty big impact that we're going into the wetlands, kind of on the cove side, and right behind the road, as you look down next time you drive over, there's a stream right on that side. So both those get permitted different ways with some overlapping agencies, but it becomes a pretty hard permitting challenge to say that we're going to put this road where the streams and the wetlands are. So the permitting for something like this becomes really challenging. The environmental impact is obviously more significant because we're moving streams, we're moving wetlands, and having direct impact to those to make an option like this work. Kind of related to that, similar mindset where if we're trying to raise the road and protect traffic and the driving surface itself, we can narrow that footprint by going vertical with the road. So either retaining walls to raise it straight up, and then you've kind of got like a little 3-4 foot cliff off the side where those guardrails would be down to the wetland surface. So that minimizes how wide our road would be. So we kind of elevate it up with retaining walls, Or this could kind of be like a boardwalk style, obviously at a higher cost than if we were doing these other options, but more like a bridge where there's some open space underneath. So that works great. The cost for those types of solutions become a lot more expensive when we're talking about importing material, building vertically instead of using material that we've got right here on the island to raise the road. But less environmental impacts, a little bit of an easier permitting strategy. So we got a couple solutions and permutations to physically raise the road in its current place. I'm gonna pass to Anya for a couple other options, kind of different flavors.
So the next three options are all sort of detour oriented, and we have three varieties or flavors of detour, I should say. So the first is the emergency detour. So this is really a solution just for when, the road is flooded. This is a one-way gravel road, most likely 10 to 12 feet wide. It's really just for those times when the road is flooded and you absolutely have to get from one side to the other. It does have the benefit of being easier to permit and a lower environmental impact because, as James was talking about before with some of the other alternatives, because it's a narrower road, we're just impacting fewer wetlands, we're clearing fewer trees, just less impact in general, and so easier to permit. The second option is to entirely realign the roadway. So in this area, one thing that could be beneficial for a solution like this is that we have natural higher elevation on the land side. And what that means is that we could essentially follow those existing land contours with a road and realign the existing roadway. However, this is a very expensive and very permit heavy and impactful solution. There would be a lot of wetland impacts, a lot of clearing, and the permitting pathway would most likely be very challenging because of all of that. The third detour option is to improve your existing detour. So this is the longest detour option. It doesn't immediately solve that solution at Trotting Park and would most likely, and when James and I talked about this, most likely we would want to pair it with something like your no build option of pre-staging emergency services, because it's such a long way around. But this is an option to improve the existing detour that you have around and to improve mobility through there to make that detour a little bit faster. The cost of this would still be on the higher side, but not the most expensive just because of the length of the project. However, the permitting pathway would be very simple because it's an existing roadway and your environmental impact would be low for the same reason. So this is a summary table, which does look like it is being cut off at the bottom, unfortunately, but that's okay. This is a summary table of all of the options that we just went over. And so now is the time when we would like to open the floor to you guys for your comments and questions to help get an understanding of how you're feeling.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, if you could say your name and introduce yourself a little bit for your comment, that would be great.
George Coogan. My wife said it. What else do you want to know?
Just your name and introduce yourself a little bit and then your comment or your question.
I could talk to you for 2 hours about how this has impacted my wife and I. We have 1,200 feet frontage on the water there.
Mm-hmm.
And when this project first came out, put the culvert in there. The engineer, and I don't think it was this gentleman here, came down to my house, okay? And I said to him, who was the idiot who designed this system? Because from my deck, you can see the ledge over there, you can see it from the road, that before Brownlee Island Road was there. And by the way, I will speak for 2 hours. Brownlee Island Road, before there was ever a road there, the water used to come in and out of there, and you can see where the high mark is during high tide. And it's probably, without guessing, 5 to 6 feet over the road. Okay, well, it's a little bit changed now. The town came and put a wall in, and they put that new culvert in, so we could have a lawn, because the water used to come right to our deck, no lawn, flooded our sewer system, everything. So the town paid to have a big wall put in there, and we got dirt put in, and we paid for a lot of that. That wall is sinking,
Okay.
As we talk right now, it's sinking. My wife can't even get up to the edge with a riding lawnmower because she's afraid it's gonna roll over. It's constantly sinking. Same as the road. The road is sinking. So now, if you go back to that first scenario of putting those Jersey barriers, so to speak, in there, you will flood our house. Guaranteed, 100%, our house will be flooded.
Okay,
So, and if you raise the road, you're gonna have to put in a bigger culvert, to let the water go through. When that happens, you'll have
I'm gonna
flood
be flooded,
carrots.
because I live across the street from him, and it's my property that floods every single time you have a flood here on the island. So, and it's, yeah, we are, and it keeps creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. It used to be a trickle that came through, and it was just a little bit of water every time there would be a high tide. Now, it's coming up closer and closer and closer, and it's getting worse every year.
if we,
And my well is not too far from there.
if we bring up the map, can you point out where you live? Can we go back in the slide?
Yes. I'm next.
Do you, can you point out where you live here?
No, I am just before, I'm just before Loud Spit Road. Before the
So,
gravel pit
yeah,
road.
so
I have a house
where-
that sits way back,
right here,
Okay,
correct. So it's
okay,
my-
so near where we had our,
It's
Yeah.
my property
Station.
that gets
yeah,
all the water when it comes across the road, yeah.
We can see the road flooded from our home.
so it's like coming from here, you go past the meadow and it's at the.
So I can't even
upper
see
end
where
of the
the,
meadow.
I know.
we're just before the gravel pit road, before Loud Spit Road.
As we're leaving
We're bo-
town on the right side.
Well, he's on
He's on the left, we're on the right.
We're opposite each other.
Opposite.
First two houses on the left and right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, Bass Sparrow, I'm co-owner of the farm behind the range. And what I haven't heard, and perhaps this is impossible, but the problem was when they had that rock fill and it was just trickle going in, that water was stagnant, the stone was fetid. So that was what behind it. And as you said, the engineers can calculate how much the culvert is gonna fill in and how much it's gonna affect that. And so I'm wondering, why wouldn't you just reduce the aperture? Why don't you reduce the culvert? Because already it's restricting water going in there. So why don't you just restrict it a little bit more rather than having that volume which is there now? And conceivably, you could get more volume, you got a bigger culvert.
So along with that, what about tidal gates?
And we're talking about Round the Island Road, that culvert.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I just.
But
wanna
that's
make
what's
sure.
causing the problem.
Yeah, and I think Gabe, you had a couple conversations about this, because Woodard Curran took a little bit of a look at this, right?
Yeah, that's what's in the Meadow Alternatives Analysis, so it's called Vinyl Cove Alternatives Analysis, and their recommendation was. Can't remember if it was replacing the culvert, I think it was, but it was with tidal gates to
So-
restrict flow
So
at
when this
times.
happened originally, there's a neighbor that lives on the other side of me. She hasn't been here in quite a while, but we came to the town for various meetings with the state and we suggested tidal gates at that point and everybody just poo-pooed us and said, no way. So now here we are. How many years later? Considering this is an alternative.
Unless you dig the road down, and 2 years ago, I believe they came and dug down to see how far it was to ledge, I call ledge. The guy said it was 26 or 27 feet of mud. So you just can't put more stuff over the road and raise it, it's just gonna continue sinking.
The state has already risen, they've already raised it once.
But if you put a seawall on our side where we are, there'll be more water intruding on our property.
It's gonna flood out.
It's gonna completely flood our property again. It's already eroding the shoreline, or I can't even mow the grass because it's like an incline now. In the beginning, when they filled it in, it was level. I could mow right to the shoreline with my riding lawnmower. Now I have to use a push lawnmower. I don't dare get too close to the edge. The water is intruding underneath and the mud's going back into the.
And if the water keeps coming, I won't be able to use my driveway.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful if, on the map, you could show the difference between what is the Trotting Park and what is the meadow. Because there are two different
Yes, they are.
locations.
Yeah.
Yes,
And I think, their concerns are the meadow.
Correct.
Right front on the meadow, whereas the cutting part is.
Father, for the town.
Right, right, so I think that what we're proposing for the trotting park is gonna be less impactful than
Right.
a seawall on the meadow, I totally agree, but I think
Mhm.
stuff on the trotting park is not gonna have much impact on you.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is gonna
Right.
impact the road.
Yeah.
Great feedback, and like, some of these concerns are definitely what we wanna hear, like Trotting Park or.
Why don't you come to
whichever
our
it is.
house? Why don't the two of you come to our house?
We'd be happy to.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're invited.
all right.
Likewise, we're right across the street from each other.
Sounds like if we go to one, we're going to the other. Did we have another comment back there?
Yeah, James from Actions, has to do with what they've already said. My understanding, I'm not here, and, Mark might have a better understanding. This was not a problem if you go back before they did something to that culvert. And that culvert should have something like a tiger gate or how we reduce flow. I mean, that seems to make
More
the
sense.
most sense.
Yeah.
Because it was not a problem. But you
You're still gonna have to raise the bar. The road is continuously.
Thinking,
Yes.
but if there isn't, but if the water doesn't continually come in, maybe it won't be, maybe it'll level out.
So I have a question, how much of this is the result of sea level changing? And how much is a result of the culvert that was put in? Changing the flow, do you see what I mean? The difference between one of them is more inexorable than the other.
I do, but before it was just a trickle that was coming in. When you open, it was essentially a dam. That's what it essentially was, up where the culvert is. They open, you open a dam, the water's gotta go somewhere.
Right. I'm asking, do we have any way of knowing if it's more water? Because we know it wasn't a problem years ago.
Correct.
Do we have any way of distinguishing whether it's more water coming in every time there's a tide? Or almost entirely just the problem of the culvert? I mean,
It's almost.
a
entirely the
man-made
culvert.
problem.
It's almost
Yeah,
entirely the culvert.
so
Say,
It's almost entirely the culvert. Yeah.
and how do we know that?
what did it,
Because you live there, we saw it,
The
What-
road wasn't flooded before.
they're
Yes, but
flooded.
There's
What-
also been.
So you have
So,
an average tide, and then you have the dam, and so there's very little, then change maybe a foot
Right, it was.
every tide, now you open that up, and it's almost completely reflects the maximum tide.
Correct.
And then when you have storm tides, then you have trouble
That's
for
right.
the high noon.
yeah, so Water and Current did look at that tide on that culvert on Round Island Road. The current culvert has better connectivity is kind of the term they use between the ocean side and the cove side. And by restricting the size of the culvert or reducing it, it does let less ocean water in at high tide, which lowers water levels on the cove side. So the culvert does play a role in it. Same time, like we can look at the gauges in Bangor and Vinalhaven and everywhere else, and like tide's going like this, from just what we've measured the last 25 years. So it's also going up at the same time. There's pieces of both going on here. But Water and Current did do a pretty thorough analysis on what if we put in a smaller culvert, what if we put a tide gate on there. So those solutions all absolutely address the flooding concern. I think the other concern that they mentioned here that's worth noting too is when all these regulatory agencies look at these wetlands and these marsh ecosystems and species that use that, it depletes them of their tidal hydrology, so it impacts dozens, hundreds of acres of wetlands. So not that it won't, like, it'll obviously help on the flooding side. It's a really difficult permitting challenge to go back the other direction after, I think what was 1999, 2000 or somewhere around there. It's really hard to kind of put the genie back in the bottle after, unfortunately.
So when you talk about like replacing the wetlands and the permitting challenges. Like that means we would have to create wetlands somewhere else or some kind of mitigation efforts.
Broad sense, not speaking to anything specific, if you impact an acre of wetlands, you normally have to create or enhance or do 3 times as much, 2 times as much, the ratios change somewhere else to offset your impact, and So, yeah, they have in lieu fees, so that's somewhere on the order of $200,000 an acre of impact. And so like these wetlands become big costs and big challenges on some of these projects. So not to say nothing's impossible, but it's a significant challenge on some of those solutions. But Water and Current did cover it, so at least when we were trying to look at Trotting Park and Folly Pond, we were trying to think of other options. So we kind of felt like Water and Current did a good job thinking about the global solutions on the entirety of the cove. We're trying to think of some other things. The one thing Anya and I didn't mention is that the soils, the technical term we'll use, squishy, they do squish down, and we do have geotech that's going to be occurring on that. So as anything raise, more weight, whatever it is, we're thinking about the potential for those soils to shrink.
We don't have the geotech report back. Our geotech was just on site last week, I believe. So do we have another comment here?
Well, I was thinking more about the impact on the wetland. Would be enormous if it goes off the flow. It would choke the wetland, and the wetland has recovered enormously from the, in years, it's an amazing example of wetland recovery. And the ability of a salt marsh to migrate landward as sea level rises. So then it will come as a significant ecological cost of something where to do these things. On the other hand, I recognize in your house thinking, you're not going to be too sympathetic to that.
I don't think that that's the problem that we have. I think we want the wetlands there. We want it, like,
We like it the way it is.
exactly.
We like it.
But
I
I
just
don't
want
see,
it to be less intrusive.
I don't see
Yeah.
restricting the flow when it gets to a certain level. How is that gonna change
That's not
so
gonna
drastically
change
the
at all.
wetlands?
Well, if the water isn't coming as high as it is now, it's gonna impact the wetland.
No,
Now, if you want.
No, you don't,
not
you
come
don't
as high.
understand. You could put in a gate, and when they're gonna have a high tide or something like that, they could close the gate. And then when that passes, open the gate back up and it'll go back the way it is. I mean, how many high tides, extreme high tides do we have here that floods the road?
A lot.
About 3 a month.
Yes.
How many?
About
Three a month?
three courses, well. I bet that road's flooded at least once a month for like 3 tide cycles at least.
So.
It's getting more every
the
year with
gates
sea level
get
rise.
closed when it's really high tide. and
Who's gonna do
put
it?
it back up. Huh?
Who's gonna go close the gates in the middle of the night?
You are.
No, I'm not.
The road's getting smaller, more water obviously is going over the road and it's getting deeper. Because I walk that every day. And I can almost feel that the road, and I can see that the road is going down. And I'm thinking to myself, why can't they put a bridge there? Like Lane's Island, because pretty soon there'll be no road there.
Yeah.
Especially with all the trucks and everything that go through that area, there won't be a road there. It's cracking, it's not gonna be there. Something has to be done. It's not just us that being intruded on as far as the road. It's everybody that's driving that road.
So you've brought up a couple of points that I am really interested in and thankful that you brought them up. It actually brings us to our first Trotting Park discussion question, which is, how frequently do you notice flooding? Are there patterns that you notice with roadway flooding, such as storms, winds in particular direction, king tides, or other? And how does flooding impact you personally?
Well, we have to go all the way around.
So the
We
detour.
go through the
Yep.
salt wall with our vehicle.
Yep.
So it impacts us on the emergency services side for sure. But sometimes when we can't get through it, when it's that high, and then I've seen it at least 2 feet across that road. It's
2
not-
feet across the road, that's pretty high, yeah.
Yeah, it's, there are storm cycles. I mean, we had a fire the other night. I wasn't on the island, but we took four engines through a foot of water. It's just before, and we're still having issues with our brakes and stuff and going through the salt. The crew said they spent about 2 hours after the call holding everything down.
Yeah.
And the pre-position of personnel and apparatus just doesn't work. I mean, we can pre-position one fire truck, but if you get a structure fire, it's just like, that's
Yeah.
nothing, right? And then if we pre-position an ambulance, obviously we'd have to staff it. Our staffing is such that we could just take volunteers and say, go sit up over there for 4 or 5 hours. And then the other problem with that is if we do have a call, there's no way to transport from that side to the other, right? I'm
Yeah.
speaking especially on Folly Pond. You know, we can do the detour again, that's a big delay in response.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that to me is not a viable option, coming from my side of things, but,
That's exactly the feedback that we want.
Yeah.
So appreciate it. Are there any other comments about flooding and frequency and how it impacts you?
So I'm, as a member of the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee, I often monitor the tide gauge up there at the meadow. And it does not flood consistently. There'll be one day when the tide is 11'2" and it doesn't flood. The next day, there'll be 11'1" tide and it floods.
So,
So I think there's wind, and when you get a heavy rainstorm and all the water is coming down the hill, it actually, your seawall would probably make the road flood more because the road, water's coming down the
Okay.
hill.
Good to know. Yep.
it's definitely driven like by tide and wind, you know, the
Yeah.
northeast wind. What's that?
Northeast wind?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that the dominant wind direction?
no, for
or
like
is it-
storm winds.
Okay.
Definitely, like with the storms, that will definitely drive that tide out, like the, also, we also live on the other side of that, so it's pretty big inconvenience if you're traveling down the road, as many of you guys can testify. You're like, oh, I gotta go to the grocery store, but I'm not taking my $50,000 or $20,000 car through that every day, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're like, now I got a 15-minute or whatever it is to get around. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a lot, but it's Vinalhaven's a long commute, right? So,
Yeah.
but it is, you know, an inconvenience, so to speak, and sometimes, you know, if I'm responding to something in my house and it's flooded, depending on the height of it, it will delay me that much from getting down.
Right, yeah.
If it's 6 inches of water, I'll eat it, but if it's, you know, a foot, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, those are our big challenges on the emergency response side is, you know, the bigger trucks we can go through a lot of it. We don't like to, but like with the name, that's where we're set. We're not going to drive that through a, you know, a foot to the water, obviously.
So that does actually bring me to the next question, which is, do you feel safe traveling through this location? And what modes of travel do you use to travel through Trotting Park? So it sounds like mostly driving.
If I was healthy, I'd be biking, but yeah.
I walk every day.
You walk every day?
Every day.
Yeah, there's like no shoulder up there.
Yeah.
I can see the water, but, you know, once in a while, there's a little bit of water on the road, depending on the time of the day, yeah. But I can tell in the seaweed and everything, with the water, pretty high. Right.
I don't wanna leave this meeting with people thinking that we're anti.
Right.
Lands. that
Right,
we're
right.
not.
Exactly.
My wife and I probably see more wildlife in that meadow than anybody.
Enjoy seeing.
Because we see it, we sit on that deck and it's everywhere. And we enjoy it. So we don't want the water to go away. That's not our thing here.
Yeah,
We
totally.
like the water coming in there and when it goes to mud, well, it goes to mud, but it's not very long.
Right.
And we enjoy that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, totally. And we'll go to our next question as well. So you mentioned the wildlife, which totally segues into this question which is what do you appreciate about this location that you would like to preserve? For example, the view, plant diversity. Have you noticed changes at this site over time?
Yes, I'd like to preserve our land, our lawn. Before it completely deteriorates, like it's eroding like this,
Yeah,
every year when I come up, I can see.
You come up, we'll show you.
we'll definitely take a look.
There's like a historic horse trough, like the FS Walls horse trough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the Indian side of the Trotting Park.
That's like where we parked.
Says where they're
remember?
parked, yeah, okay, so.
Yeah.
It seems like some of these plans might not be able to preserve it, but some kind of consideration for moving it somewhere else is something.
No, that's really good feedback. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Isn't there a spring there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, what time span are you concerned about the trade will retire? What time span are you?
Any, so seasonal changes, time over
In the
and
mid
change over
eighties,
years.
the inlet was nothing more than a mud flat.
Mhm.
Speaking mud flat, it's sulfur, but
Very sticky, yeah.
producing, you know, sulfur dioxide all the time, hydrogen sulfide, to make it safe. And the recovery of the salt marsh was amazing. It's going for a very low diversity marshal environment, damage really to a very nice mature salt marsh. Of course, this ghost trees are kind of spooky to some people's eyes. They can be removed, but after aesthetic issues, I think a lot of it.
Yeah,
But the original, not the original, but the meetings. Anyway,
It's not a pleasant place.
was not a pleasant place. It wasn't productive.
Mhm.
And it smelled and I even certified.
Are there any other, thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any other things you'd like to preserve, things you appreciate about Trotting Park? No changes you've noticed?
I mean, growing up, I could speak to that kind of same thing, that we
Yeah.
grew up as a child and crossing it when it did stink, and when it was a kind of a muck hole, and I think I can speak for, I think everyone appreciates the beauty and the wetlands and thing. I think everyone's concern is the flooding and the roadway, and if we can mitigate that side of things, I think everyone's mostly happy with the way things are, except for where it goes, right? I mean, and the tide thing, so if we can come up with some, either woodward currents or some combination of both that would mitigate those, the erosion and the flooded roads, I think everyone would be happy. And how do we get there? I guess is why you're here.
That's true.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
I just have an off the wall thought that you can tell me why it won't work. Is there any kind of, how deep does it get and how does it work?
The road itself, I've seen at least 2 feet there, maybe
2
more.
feet.
Yeah, maybe more. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been over it's been like, with the guardrail, it's been
Yeah.
on the top of that at least. And so that's probably more than 2 feet.
So my question, how deep it actually gets on the road, because I've only seen it, it's been mentioned. So the question was, or the harebrained idea was, is there a road surface that we could put down that's gonna slow traffic down, but it's essentially some kind of a grid. Whether it's galvanized or maybe there are other that raises the road, so you have something like the ramp to the ferry, but it's on a grid placed on the road rather than having to do the more expensive, going down the bedrock or whatever. It just lays on the road, and of course it has to be anchored, so it doesn't. If there is anything like that.
And then what, raise?
No, it just sits there and lets the water flow underneath.
It's called a bridge.
But a cheap bridge.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like a giant bridge.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we would have to really understand the geotech, but just from the context of this conversation and hearing about the squishy soils and stuff like that, I think one of the issues is still that the road might be sinking, so anything you place on it is more weight and you're just, gonna keep going down.
I think it fits in that family of like the elevated roadway. So I think there's a lot of options and pros, cons, and a lot of those challenges get resolved with money, but certainly something to consider.
Okay, I'm gonna move to the next question only because we are a little short on time. We haven't even gotten to Folly Pond yet, but during construction, would you be in favor of or opposed to one-way alternating traffic, temporary road closure, night work, or other work zone traffic control? Are there specific times that construction would be more impactful? This is specifically just, if we're thinking about these alternatives, are there any restrictions on construction for you all that might eliminate an alternative?
And so some of what like Anya and I think about in these situations is the fastest, cheapest way to get a project done. Close the road, detour around, we get in, we get out. But if that's an impact, we can do a more expensive, slower project and alternate lanes. But like that type of feedback now really helps Anya and I figure out, okay, what's the best solution? What's a reasonable cost? And can work with Gabe and others to, okay, how do we accomplish this?
Would there be permitting restrictions that would dictate the time of year you could do a project?
That depends. Sometimes yes, but that depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on
Probably.
what the alternative is.
Probably different times a year for the two sites.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you?
I don't live near there, but if there were like a full road closure, it would be useful to have it like posted downtown somewhere, or in the wind, like, so we could go the alternate route instead of you get up there, it's flooded.
So if it was a full road closure for about how long would that be? Because I have a concern with the emergency vehicles, I do.
Yeah, so definitely that would be input we would want from Mark, but that also depends on what project we would decide to do.
Okay.
So
That's.
As you can, as Kate probably knows, I'm not a fan of road closures.
it
Just 'cause
doesn't
of-
have to
of what's
be,
going
it does
on
not have to be a road closure. It's just, we're trying to understand what is the comfort with a road closure in Vinalhaven.
My comfort level is not very good.
Well, I mean, that's good to
I mean,
know.
we deal with them and we'll plan for them, but it's,
Yeah.
again, it's understanding that that's a delay of
Of services.
10 minutes, so,
Yeah.
at least.
I'd be perfectly happy with a road closure, but I think July and August would probably not be good times to do it.
Yeah, yeah, the time of year.
That's the best time, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, we had so much fun.
No way.
Yeah, we're going up to Tiptoe.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to the next question. Whoops. Okay, what concerns, observations, or local knowledge about this project area should the town consider before developing alternatives? And what are other general past experiences that you would like to share about Trotting Park? We have shared quite a few already, but if there's anything else that we haven't captured?
It'd be great not to make the same engineering mistakes, so that whatever that put in that huge culvert.
Thank you. Okay, and then our last question for Trotting Park is 10 years from now, the project is a success. Why?
It's obvious.
Yeah, because we've preserved the local yards nearby and
Yeah.
we still have a thriving run.
Yeah.
Right, and we can.
We have a road that we can-
Right, set there. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That does help.
Yeah. So, in the interest of time, I am gonna jump to Folly Pond, and we have similar discussion questions for Folly Pond, and we did start with the same question as we had for Trotting Park, which is how frequently do you notice flooding? Are there patterns that you notice with roadway flooding, such as storms, winds in a particular direction, king tides, or other? And how does flooding impact you personally? And this is specifically talking now about Folly Pond and not Trotting Park.
Sure. So my notice of that section of town is it's, doesn't flood as often, honestly, and a lot of it's driven by people. When it does flood, it usually is limited to mostly like one lane, the side closest to Folly Pond. There was obviously the time when had the major storm and the road washed out, which is a big concern, still a concern. We should happen to get that again, so.
You know when that was?
October 24, was that?
So 22 years ago, yeah, 2024, I can get your date.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Some of the
Sorry.
pictures on there were of that,
Yeah.
when you had it, so, and that was a total isolation of, I mean, there was no way of getting emergency services or anyone across there. I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was a big chapel, it's a fight.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, to date, is it so impactful as the other, as the Meadow and Trotting Park? And typically it hasn't, to my knowledge, hasn't ever, just looking on the emergency services side, delayed any type of response or, inhibited us from going through there. Plus it's fresh water, you can drive through it, at a minimum that. It's with the exception that if we get another washout like that, it's just, that we gotta mitigate that, so.
Yeah.
My concerns.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on frequency of flooding or impact of flooding at Folly Pond?
My name is Elaine Crossman. I'm just curious about, how much the rising sea levels, how much we're at risk for salt intrusion into Folly Pond, and concerned that whatever happens there addresses that as well. This is our town water supply gets salt intrusion, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's
Do not know if we know the answer to that yet. I'm still working on the modeling.
yeah, time is the short answer, is yeah, we see the tide gauges going with this over time. But a lot of it's based on elevations. Folly Pond is a little bit higher elevation, so it's got more relative room before the tides get there. But certainly something, a lot of coastal communities, there's a lot down in Seacoast, New Hampshire, that around water wells are starting to suck up salt and running into some of these issues, so it's a problem across the region. Definitely something we want to keep our eye on.
Alrighty, I'm gonna jump to the next question here, which is, do you notice water levels behind the beaver dam changing or fluctuating significantly over time? Have high water levels caused icing issues on the road?
I wouldn't say I see the levels changing over time, but I see them, I go up one day and it's very, very high, and then I go up a week later and it's significantly lower.
So they change over a short time period?
That's what I'm seeing.
Yep.
Yeah, and it may be rainfall, it may be beaver activity, whatever. And I'm not aware of icing on the road. Mark might be more aware than I am.
I haven't noticed any more in that area, and truthfully, I don't travel that way too often, but when I do, I don't really notice it any more than anywhere else.
Okay.
There are more immersion macrophytes. Excuse me, there are more immersion macrophytes down in the whole version though. That part of the Washington thing that.
Okay.
What it means or what I live in, I don't know.
I think a lot of it is based on like beaver activity with the culvert there before, they've got
Yeah.
something in there now that's kind of
Oh,
like.
the beaver deceiver?
Beaver deceiver, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it seems to have leveled out since.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's changing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for your feedback. Okay. Any new design at Folly Pond will be designed with stream smart standards in mind to allow passage for aquatic animals, but we also want to consider other animals other than beavers. We want to consider the beavers, but we're aware of the beavers. But do you notice other animals on the road hit by traffic at or near Folly Pond?
I just saw a bunch of baby ducks the other day crossing the street to get to the ponds.
Oh, really? That's cute. Any other animals around there? Or roadkill is also a really good tell for us.
There's turtles at Round Pond, so I don't.
There's turtles at Round Pond?
At Folly Pond,
Seems like
and there's otter everywhere.
Otter everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good to know. Okay. Oh, we have a hand raised online. I'm not sure how to.
Yeah, just about other animals on the Folly Pond Road at danger of getting hit by vehicles, other humans in vehicles. It gets real narrow down there. When I was stern manning for George Gross, I was driving up there most days, and it narrows down. It's poor visibility driving there. So in terms of if there was any road work being done, that could be taken into account, because
Totally.
it's hairy there first thing in the morning when people are rushing to get to work.
So that actually, thank you, John. That brings us into the next question, which is, do you feel safe traveling through this location, and what modes of travel do you use?
Yeah, I was driving, but I wouldn't have felt comfortable biking, and you'd have to be quick on your feet walking.
It's good to know. What about folks in the room? What do you feel safe traveling through Folly Pond, and what modes of travel do you use?
As John said, the road's narrow, it's narrow and uphill curve.
Yep.
And I would slow down a lot.
Yeah, if you come across a biker down there, he gets really hairy fast.
Yeah.
I've run through there a few times and I'm not a fast runner, but I was.
You run fast when you run through there?
As fast as I could, yeah.
Okay. All right. I will move to the next question, which is, what do you appreciate about this location that you would like to preserve? For example, the view or the plant diversity, and have you noticed changes at this site over time? Nobody wants to preserve anything about Folly Pond.
I love Folly Pond.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. There's a land trust wall on the far side, and
Yeah.
there's dragonflies, and pickleweed, and water lilies, and beaver dams, and huge variety of habitat. And I appreciate it as a naturalist. I appreciate it as a member of the water district. Preserve it all.
Preserve it all. Okay.
Well,
We'll work on that.
I just have to say here, that there's a hazard we haven't really talked about, but some of us don't drive as carefully as we could through there because looking to see if we'll see any beavers. Well, I mean, I find that, I'm sure there must be somebody else besides me, but I'm always kind of like, what's in there? And
Not quite sure how to solve that.
that's not,
But I'll work on it.
we like it. We like
Yes,
that.
yes, that's good to know. Yeah, the view is really important.
Yeah, the view is important.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, so the next. During construction, would you be in favor of or opposed to one-way alternating traffic and night work or other work zone traffic control? And are there specific times when construction would be more impactful? And notice for this one, we did not include road closure because there's no way to get around, so. Just the other types of work zone traffic control. Is there anything that you would be opposed to? Any times of year? That it would be better or worse?
Summer's definitely when that end of the island's more occupied, and early in the morning, I think tends to have more traffic than later in the afternoon.
Okay, early in the morning in summertime. Good to know.
Yeah, the winter, the roads are so sketchy that you don't want to be going through there. And then during lobstering season, you don't want to close it down.
And consider ferry times.
Consider ferry times, yeah, that's a good point.
To get to the ferry.
Yeah,
And if they forget,
Oh, yeah,
that there's construction there.
yeah. That would
that's very good feedback, thank you. Okie dokie, I'll go to the next question. What concerns, observations, or local knowledge about the project area should the town consider before developing alternatives? And what are other general past experiences that you would like to share about Folly Pond?
There is a bit of a memorial plaque at one section there that I think you should keep in mind if we're doing construction around there.
Where is it?
There's like a little boat launch. that you kind of push out.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yep, I remember seeing it, thank you. All right, and our last question is, 10 years from now, the project is a success, why?
The road isn't washed out.
Yeah.
Washed out, the road is passable and the beaver are happy.
The road is passable and the beaver are happy?
And we're not.
No salt
well, 10 years,
intrusion.
We probably won't have saltwater intrusion for 10 years, but. We're thinking about.
How do you take into account beaver behavior in response to any mitigation efforts you might do? I mean, the beavers are very persistent in manning that outlet. Why are they going to stop doing it?
Yeah, so they sure are, but I'm gonna let you guys talk about beaver deceivers.
Yeah, so
We're good.
yeah, there's that beaver deceiver now that's doing a lot better job than what was there, so it kind of submerging the inlet, just however they work, they don't dam it as well as like flowing water. But a likely solution, Anya mentioned like stream smart, that's kind of like a term that's used in the permitting world for culverts that span the stream. And so that's something like that's likely what we propose here. And so once you span the stream that's downstream, it's a lot tougher for beavers to plug something that's wider than the stream is. And so it's not completely eliminating the risk, but it's certainly reducing it from, doesn't take too many sticks to plug a culvert this big versus
The beavers have dammed the gap in the Max Pond Dam is 10 feet wide, in the space of 10 days.
they,
Flooding the wetland,
Yeah.
2.2 acres, it went from an open wetland of a graminoid fen to a total pond now.
They-
I have pictures, 10 feet wide,
Yeah.
10 feet wide and 10 days, it's amazing.
they work,
Well, using small sticks too.
they work fast.
You suggested something like a boss culvert? That would be.
Most likely,
Yeah.
but there would still be a beaver deceiver element to that other culvert pipe, most likely. Okie dokie. Okay, so our last slide is just about next steps. So thank you all for your participation in this meeting. All of your feedback is going to go into our alternatives analysis, which is what we are working on next. We plan to have the initial alternatives analysis done in September of this year. And then there will be another community engagement event around that time where we will discuss those alternatives. We're going to take many of those alternatives we talked about at Trotting Park today, narrow them down a little bit, go into a bit more detail. Once we do the initial alternatives analysis, we're going to try to narrow it down to one solution for each location, and we're going to try to create, we're going to create conceptual design plans for that selected solution. There will be another community engagement event at that point, and then the final alternatives analysis and report is going to be done in February of 2027. So it will sort of package up all of these things together. Alrighty. Thank you. I really appreciate.
Excuse me, so if you decide to put in the Jersey barriers, then you'll find a decision, and I know that's gonna flood our land.
Seawall.
Yeah, the seawall, whatever you call it. What do we have, what's our alternative?
Yeah, so one of the unique things about these tidal systems is that, especially with that inlet, water goes both ways when you have a stream coming in. So part of the work that we do through the design process, and permitting, we have to look at things like that. So we're not fixing flooding on one side by flooding the person on the other, vice versa. So any solution that gets advanced is gonna have to consider that before it gets any permits. So honestly, I don't think there's a solution that would get permitted that would cause harm to somebody.
Well, you would definitely flood our sewer system, so we would not get it.
Okay.
But that seawall was to be put up. You come to our house, we'll show you what we need.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We really appreciate all of your input and your feedback and your participation today. And if you have any final questions, we're going to be hanging around for a little bit. Gabe, did you have any closing?
Yeah, just,
over?
thank you all, and, you know, please, like I said, if you want to use the online form to share thoughts and ideas that come up for you, also feel free to, you know, talk to Marjorie, talk to me, talk to any of the members of the Sea Level Rise Committee. We'll get information to James and Anya. And just so folks know, like, this is a planning and design process, so it's not, we're not constructing anything, obviously. You know, at this time, we still have the Meadow alternatives analysis from 2023, and there's been no forward movement on construction for something like that. So what the town's goal with this really was to look at the entire project area along North Haven Road and understand not just the Meadow, but the other areas that are impacted, and then think about what does everything look like as a construction project. So obviously there's 3 sites, but they all, you know, are sort of interrelated, particularly the Meadow and the Meadow and Trotting Park. So as we know, it takes a long time to get from a conceptual idea to a construction project that's funded. So we have a ways to go with this, but it's really great to hear what everyone is saying, and because this is obviously what leads to what could be an eventual construction project. So just really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, online folks. Thank you, Maisie. Appreciate everyone attending. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
So if